When a message reaches you on a particular day and holds your attention, the first impulse of the mind is often to label it as coincidence or destiny. Education begins when you do neither immediately. Instead of accepting or rejecting the moment, you observe it. Observation creates space between stimulus and reaction, and in that space, understanding can arise. The meaning of the moment is not hidden in the calendar or in the message itself, but in the state of awareness you bring to it. Human beings naturally search for patterns. This is not a weakness, it is a function of intelligence. However, when pattern seeking turns into blind belief, learning stops. Belief without examination creates dependency, while awareness creates autonomy. When you encounter a message on a specific day, the value is not in assuming it was meant for you, but in asking why it resonates now. What question in your life is it touching? What uncertainty is it exposing?
Education teaches us to question before we conclude. A meaningful moment does not demand worship, it demands reflection.
Reflection is an active process. It requires you to turn inward and examine your current direction. Are your actions aligned with your values, or have you been operating on habit alone? Often such moments arrive not to confirm that you are on the right path, but to gently reveal where you have become unconscious. Awareness is uncomfortable because it removes excuses, yet it is the foundation of growth. Seeing something at a specific time does not carry power by itself. Power arises when you respond consciously. Two people can receive the same message on the same day, and one will forget it within minutes while the other will use it as a point of correction. The difference is not fate, it is readiness. Readiness means the mind is willing to look at itself honestly, without defensiveness or fantasy. Education separates emotional excitement from understanding. Emotional excitement feels strong but fades quickly. Understanding changes behavior. When a moment invites you to look at your life, the correct response is not excitement, fear, or pride, but clarity. Clarity asks simple yet demanding questions. What am I doing daily? What am I avoiding? What am I justifying? These questions are not dramatic, but they are transformative. Many people want meaning to arrive as a guarantee, as if a sign could replace effort. This is a misunderstanding. Meaning is not delivered, it is constructed through interpretation and action. A moment becomes meaningful only when it leads to responsibility. Without responsibility, moments become entertainment. With responsibility, even ordinary experiences become lessons. Self-examination is the discipline of turning attention inward, without judgment. This is difficult because the ego prefers stories that protect its comfort. Blind belief often feels easier because it allows one to feel special without changing. Awareness demands change. It does not flatter, it instructs. When you truly examine yourself, you begin to see how often you react automatically, how often you postpone growth, and how often you seek reassurance instead of improvement. A specific day is not important because of its number, but because time is always now. The mind likes to wait for symbolic dates to begin, but life does not operate on symbolism. It operates on action. When a message interrupts your routine, it is an opportunity to regain presence. Presence means you are here, attentive, and willing to adjust. This is rare and therefore valuable. Education teaches that wisdom is not found in collecting messages, but in integrating them. Integration means you translate insight into behavior. If a moment encourages awareness but your habits remain unchanged, the moment has passed without impact. If it leads you to simplify your life, correct your conduct, or refine your focus, then it has fulfilled its purpose. There is also humility in understanding the meaning of a moment correctly. Instead of saying, "This was sent to me because I am chosen," a more mature understanding is, "This appeared because I am capable of learning from it." Capability implies responsibility. It means you are expected to grow, not to feel superior. Growth is quiet. It shows in patience, discipline, and consistency, not in declarations. When you examine moments this way, you stop depending on external validation. You no longer need constant signs to move forward. You learn to use whatever appears as material for self-correction. This is true independence of mind. Life continuously offers lessons, but only an attentive mind receives them. In the end, the meaning behind the moment is not mystical. It is practical. It is an invitation to wake up, to observe your inner state, and to take ownership of your direction. Blind belief asks you to surrender your thinking. Awareness asks you to sharpen it. and only through awareness does a moment stop being random and start becoming formative. This is how education transforms experience into wisdom. When people hear the idea of being chosen, the mind often moves toward comfort, pride, or a sense of special status. This reaction is natural, but it is also misleading. Education corrects this misunderstanding by shifting the focus from privilege to responsibility. To be chosen does not mean life will favor you, it means life will expect more from you. Expectation is heavier than reward, and only a mature mind can carry it without distortion. Responsibility begins with thought. Every action is preceded by a mental position, whether conscious or unconscious. If your thinking is undisciplined, your actions will reflect confusion, no matter how strong your intentions appear. Feeling chosen, in a meaningful sense, means you are called to observe your inner dialogue. What do you repeatedly tell yourself? What beliefs guide your decisions? Without examining thought patterns, responsibility remains an idea rather than a practice. Thought alone, however, is not enough. Many people reflect deeply yet act inconsistently. Responsibility becomes real only when thought is translated into action. Action reveals truth. You may believe you value discipline, honesty, or growth, but your daily behavior will either confirm or deny this belief. Being chosen, therefore, is not a title you accept. It is a standard you must meet through conduct. Discipline is where responsibility becomes visible. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but in education it is understood as direction. Discipline directs energy so it does not scatter. Without discipline, even strong motivation dissolves. When you accept responsibility for your discipline, you stop waiting for motivation and begin relying on structure. Structure carries you when emotion cannot. Many people prefer to feel inspired rather than accountable. Inspiration feels light, accountability feels heavy. Yet growth depends on the weight you're willing to carry. Responsibility asks uncomfortable questions. Did I act according to my principles today? Did I choose convenience over correctness? Did I react or did I respond? These questions do not accuse, they educate. Feeling chosen can become dangerous when it removes self-criticism. A person who believes they are chosen without responsibility begins to justify poor behavior. They blame circumstances, people, or fate. Education teaches the opposite approach. If you are aware, you are accountable. Awareness increases responsibility, it does not reduce it. The more you understand, the less you can excuse. Choice is the foundation of responsibility. At every moment, you choose how to interpret events, how to react, and how much effort to apply. Even when options are limited, attitude remains a choice. Recognizing this truth removes the illusion of helplessness. You may not control everything that happens, but you always participate in how it shapes you. When responsibility is accepted fully, external validation becomes unnecessary. You no longer need confirmation that you are chosen, guided, or favored. Your focus shifts to alignment. Are your thoughts aligned with clarity? Are your actions aligned with integrity? Is your discipline aligned with your long-term direction? Alignment creates inner stability, which is stronger than external reassurance. Education emphasizes self-leadership. A responsible person does not wait to be corrected. They correct themselves. This is not self-punishment, but self-respect. You do not improve because you are afraid of consequences. You improve because you understand cause and effect. Every thought creates a tendency. Every action strengthens a habit. Every habit shapes character. Responsibility is recognizing this chain and intervening consciously. Many misunderstand responsibility as burden, but in reality, it is freedom. When you take responsibility, you stop being controlled by impulse, mood, or circumstance. You gain the ability to pause, assess, and choose. This pause is power. Without it, life pushes you. With it, you direct yourself. Being chosen, in its truest sense, means you have been given awareness. Awareness is not comfort, it is clarity. Clarity shows you where you are undisciplined, inconsistent, or distracted. It also shows you where correction is possible. Responsibility is not about perfection, it is about correction. Each day offers opportunities to refine your direction through small, deliberate choices. The educational value of this understanding is practical. It does not ask you to believe in labels. It asks you to observe results. If your thoughts are ordered, your actions intentional, and your discipline steady, your life will gradually reflect this order. If not, no sense of being chosen will compensate for neglect. In the end, responsibility removes fantasy and replaces it with reality. Reality is demanding, but it is fair. It responds to effort, consistency, and awareness. Feeling chosen is meaningless without responsibility. With responsibility, it becomes a reminder to live consciously, to act deliberately, and to treat each choice as a contribution to the person you are becoming. This is how responsibility transforms an idea into a way of life. Human beings often search for signs to confirm that change is coming, or that they are moving in the right direction. This tendency is understandable because signs feel reassuring. They give the impression that something outside of us is guiding the process. However, education teaches that signs are only indicators, not engines of transformation. They can point toward a direction, but they cannot walk the path for you. True change begins only when the mind is ready to do the work. Inner readiness is not excitement, motivation, or emotional intensity. These states are temporary and unreliable. Readiness is a quiet condition of the mind where resistance has been reduced and honesty has increased. A ready mind is willing to see itself clearly without distortion or defense. It does not demand guarantees before effort, and it does not wait for perfect conditions to begin. This willingness is the real starting point of change. External signs often become substitutes for responsibility. People wait for confirmation, timing, or approval before acting. In doing so, they delay growth. Education reveals that waiting for signs can become a refined form of avoidance. It allows the individual to feel attentive and hopeful without taking risk or making correction. A prepared mind does not need repeated signals. One insight is enough to initiate action. The mind that is not ready will ignore even the clearest instruction. You can place guidance, opportunity, and support directly in front of someone, and still nothing changes. This is not because the sign was unclear, but because the internal state was closed. Readiness determines whether information becomes knowledge or remains noise. Without readiness, even truth feels inconvenient. Preparation of the mind happens through discipline and self-observation. It requires you to notice your patterns honestly. Where do you resist effort? Where do you seek comfort instead of progress? Where do you rely on hope instead of practice? These observations are not meant to shame, but to educate. Only what is seen can be corrected. Signs do not remove difficulty, they only highlight possibility. Many misunderstand signs as promises of ease. When difficulty appears, they lose faith or direction. A prepared mind understands that difficulty is not a contradiction to progress, it is a component of it. When the mind expects effort, it does not collapse under challenge. It adjusts, learns, and continues. Education emphasizes process over symbolism. A process is repeatable and reliable. Symbols are emotional and inconsistent. Change happens through repeated correct behavior, not through rare, meaningful moments. Those moments can initiate reflection, but they cannot replace daily practice. Inner readiness is demonstrated by consistency, not intensity. A ready mind takes responsibility for its condition. It does not blame lack of signs, lack of support, or lack of inspiration. It asks a more direct question: what can I correct today? This question leads to action. Action builds momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence strengthens readiness further. This cycle is internal and self-sustaining. Many people misunderstand preparation as waiting until they feel confident. In reality, confidence follows action, not the other way around. A prepared mind accepts uncertainty and moves anyway. It understands that clarity improves through engagement. Avoidance creates confusion. Action creates feedback. Feedback educates the mind. External signs can inspire, but they can also distract. When too much attention is placed on interpretation, less energy remains for application. Education shifts focus from meaning to method. Not what does this sign mean, but what does this require of me? This question keeps the individual grounded in reality rather than imagination. Inner readiness also involves humility. A prepared mind accepts that it does not know everything and that learning is ongoing. It listens more than it declares. It tests ideas through practice rather than defending them through belief. This humility allows growth to continue even when progress is slow. Change is not an event, it is a discipline. The mind must be trained to tolerate effort, delay, and repetition. Signs do not build this capacity. Only practice does. When the mind is prepared, even small instructions are sufficient. When it is unprepared, even dramatic signs are wasted. Education teaches that life does not respond to what you notice, but to what you do consistently. Inner readiness aligns attention with effort. It turns awareness into structure. It replaces waiting with working. This is where real transformation begins. In the end, signs are not meaningless, but they are secondary. They serve as reminders, not replacements. The real work happens internally, quietly, through choice, discipline, and repetition. When the mind is ready, it does not chase signs. It uses them briefly, then returns to practice. And it is through this practice that lasting change is built. Alignment with higher principles is not an abstract idea reserved for philosophy or belief. It is a practical condition that shapes how a person moves through daily life. When intention, action, and values point in the same direction, energy is no longer divided. Division is the main cause of inner conflict. A person may want growth but act out of habit, or value integrity but compromise under pressure. This misalignment creates confusion, fatigue, and inconsistency. Education teaches that clarity emerges when these inner elements are brought into agreement. Intention is the starting point, but it is often misunderstood. Intention is not a wish or a hopeful statement. It is a commitment to direction. Many people declare good intentions, yet their daily actions contradict them. This contradiction weakens the mind. Over time, the mind stops trusting its own promises. Alignment restores that trust. When intention is followed by action, even small action, the mind becomes stable and confident. Values serve as internal standards. They are the principles you use to decide what matters and what does not. Without clear values, decisions are reactive. With values, decisions become deliberate. Education emphasizes the importance of defining values through behavior rather than words. What you repeatedly choose under pressure reveals what you truly value. Alignment requires honesty at this level. You cannot claim one value and live another without creating internal resistance. Action is where alignment becomes visible. Action translates invisible principles into reality. A person aligned with higher principles acts consistently, even when it is inconvenient. This does not mean perfection, it means correction. When action deviates, it is adjusted rather than justified. This ability to self-correct is a sign of alignment, not failure. Higher principles are not external rules imposed on you, they are guiding structures that support long-term stability. Principles such as honesty, discipline, responsibility, patience, and service are higher not because they are morally superior, but because they produce sustainable outcomes. Short-term gains often violate these principles and lead to long-term cost. Education trains the mind to see beyond immediate reward and consider consequence. When intention, values, and action align, decision-making becomes simpler. Confusion decreases because internal conflict decreases. You are no longer negotiating with yourself at every step. This simplicity creates clarity. Clarity does not mean certainty about outcomes, it means certainty about direction. You may not know exactly where a path leads, but you know why you are walking it. Purpose emerges naturally from alignment. Purpose is not something you search for externally, it is something you experience when your actions reflect your values consistently. A person without alignment may chase many goals and still feel empty. A person with alignment may pursue fewer goals and feel grounded. Education reveals that purpose is a byproduct of coherence within the self. Life responds differently to aligned individuals, not because the world favors them, but because their behavior is predictable and reliable. Reliability builds trust, both internally and externally. Others know what to expect from you. More importantly, you know what to expect from yourself. This self-reliance reduces anxiety and hesitation. Alignment also strengthens resilience. When challenges arise, an aligned person does not collapse into doubt. Difficulty is evaluated through principle rather than emotion. The question becomes not how do I escape this, but how do I act correctly within this? This shift preserves dignity and direction under pressure. Education warns against mistaking alignment for rigidity. Alignment is not stubbornness. It includes adaptability, but adaptation without compromise of core values. Principles guide adjustment, they do not prevent it. This balance allows growth without loss of identity. Misalignment often shows itself through exhaustion. When a person constantly acts against their values, energy drains quickly. the mind is forced to maintain contradictions. Alignment conserves energy because effort is unified. This is why aligned individuals often appear calm and focused even when carrying heavy responsibility. Alignment requires continuous maintenance. Values must be revisited, intentions clarified, and actions reviewed. This is not a one-time achievement. Education frames alignment as a discipline, not a state. Each day offers opportunities to realign through conscious choice. When alignment is present, progress becomes steady. There may still be setbacks, but direction remains intact. Life feels purposeful not because everything works out, but because effort feels meaningful. Meaning sustains endurance. In the end, alignment with higher principles is what transforms effort into fulfillment. It brings order to the inner world, and that order reflects outwardly in behavior and results. When intention, action, and values move together, life no longer feels scattered. It moves with clarity, stability, and quiet purpose.